I'm Hemant Mehta.
And I'm Jessica Blimke.
And you're listening to the podcast for FriendlyAtheist.com. You can now listen to all of our episodes and see show notes at FriendlyAtheistPodcast.com. I'm here with Sarah Morehead. Sarah Morehead is a former American Atheist, Atheist of the Year. She's one of the real activists in this world that we're in this atheist world. So she does so much that I wanted to talk to her about some of the projects she's working on, and that includes the upcoming Reason Rally. So if you were part of it in 2012 when they did it last time, we're going to do it again in 2016, and Sarah is heading up that effort. So we'll talk about that as well. So Sarah, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. So let's talk about, before we get into the Reason Rally, no, screw it. I want to talk about the Reason Rally.
As does everyone.
So for people who have no idea what we're even talking about, what was the Reason Rally?
So the Reason Rally was the largest gathering of non-religious, atheist, humanist people in the history of the country, actually. It was in March of 2012, and it was the Reason Rally is made up of a coalition of all of the major and minor organizations in the movement. So American Humanists, American Atheists, Center for Inquiry. This year we have, the ex-Muslims of North America are in as a minor sponsor, and lots of other awesome groups. So all of these groups came together, and they elected David Silverman last time to put the event together, and it was awesome and fun and exciting, and everybody showed up. We had a great time, lots of good stuff from the stage. And
yeah, I was there, and there were like, I think estimated, I was on stage there. There were like 20 to 30,000 people estimated in the audience, which is awesome for atheists and probably like a slow weekend at Rick Warren's church.
Probably so.
But that was awesome, though.
And it was bad weather, accidentally, which, ironically enough, we don't have control over.
No, acts of God. There you go.
I will point out it stopped raining when Tim Minchin was singing, so if that's not an endorsement, I don't know what is.
And the rainbows came out.
Yes, that's how I remember it, at least.
But it was, everyone I've talked to who went to that event was just, for so many people, this is the first thing they've ever done around other atheists. Yeah. And so to see, like you're standing in a sea of other atheists and you don't have to censor yourself, and you see people wearing these shirts, whether they're making fun of stuff or whether they're talking about science and reason.
Just connecting with each other and getting to know each other. And I saw a lot of things where, people were from the same parts of the country and running into each other and making that connection and realizing that their world was actually a little bit broader than they thought it was. That was exciting. And they're getting to know each other, and you see the Facebook groups exploding after that. So, it was really cool.
And then on top of that, it's Washington, D.C., it's the mall, it's the Smithsonian. It was an awesome venue, too.
It was literally, at the foot of the Washington Memorial. So it's, you couldn't be more symbolic than that.
Right. And kind of the purpose behind it was, hey, politicians, because this was an election year, you can't ignore us. We're not really a voting bloc because it's not like we think in lockstep. But look at how many of us there are, and we represent.
Worth listening to.
Yeah, we're worth listening to. Come on, talk to us.
Right.
And in fact, there were, I think, at least one or two members of Congress who addressed us, not from the stage, but on video. Bill Maher addressed the crowd through video anyway. But there were these people addressing it, and you're like, yeah, I think they realize this is a big deal.
Yeah.
So now you're in charge of running the next Reason Rally.
That's correct.
In another election year.
Yes.
So how do you go from there? Because if we talk about that as like, oh, this was this pinnacle, this was the big
awesome
event. How do you take that and say, okay, we're going to make it bigger and better this time?
We have to do it again.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a big undertaking. I have a lot of teams of really awesome people in different committees and putting things together. So that's a big part of it. But the second piece really was asking ourselves, what more can we do? The first Reason Rally was fantastic. It was exciting. It was groundbreaking. And it got a lot of people's attention. But this time around, we've seen the Pew studies that, people are leaving religion. The church Pew non-believers are there. So how do we encourage all of these people to come be a part of what we're doing? And I think the answer to that is really that we as a Reason Rally coalition need to build this platform that gives all of these wonderful organizations that we're working with that support us as our sponsors an opportunity to speak, the message of their particular organization to everyone. So, we're kind of, my mantra this time around is really, this is the Reason Rally, not the Atheist Rally. And, we've obviously spoken and gotten to a lot of, the hardline atheists, the people who are comfortable identifying as atheists. But there's a lot of people out there who are non-believers, or they're, non-religious, or whatever label they're comfortable with or lack thereof, who I think, we all agree we have some commonality, and we need to include them, and we need to make sure the voices of science and skepticism and reason and all of that are coming from our stage.
So you're really talking to the nuns, but
Exactly.
not the atheists, which is a subset of them.
I wouldn't say not the atheists. I mean, there's no question.
Not only the atheists.
Not only the
Yeah.
atheists, absolutely. I mean, I think basically everybody who came last time, as far as I can tell, the vast majority are coming back. They're very excited. That was a big part of, when I was weighing the decision of being interested in being a part of this, just what's the buzz, what's everybody's interest level. And there's no question it's very positive. But I think, even beyond that, saying, okay, these are the people that are very likely to come back. We already know that. They're wonderful, they're motivated, and they had a great time last time. So how do we get everybody else? And I think that's going to be done by, one, creating a full experience where it's not just show up on the mall on Saturday and run through everything and go home. We're going to have stuff built in from Thursday to Sunday, the entire end of the week. Outside of that, it's, having representation on the stage for all of these people and all of these viewpoints, scientists, skeptics, like I was saying, politicians, if we can encourage them to do that, just anyone far beyond just our conference circuit, really. That's really what we're looking for.
So first of all, do we have a date for the Reason Rally?
We do, actually. Do you have a drum roll or anything? You can that was fantastic.
Thank you.
That was, I really appreciate that.
That cost me a lot of money right there.
Yeah, I figured. We do. So the Reason Rally will be June 4th, 2016.
And that's a Saturday again?
And that is a Saturday. And we're actually going to be at the Lincoln Memorial this time.
Ooh, very cool.
Very exciting.
So it's June 4th, but that whole weekend is going to be stuff going on.
Thursday through Sunday, we're going to have things going on. We're going to have free stuff going on every single day. And of course, the Reason Rally on the mall is free. Absolutely don't have to register or anything like that. But there will also be opportunities to do VIP tickets. There's going to be, upgrade options. We're going to have other shows people can go to and be a part of. We're really looking for this to be a full entire experience. It's not a conference, but we will have a mini con going on Sunday for everybody to be a part of. We want to, everybody's going to show up on that Saturday, and they're going to get motivated and inspired and really excited about going back home. And what we want to do on Sunday is then give them the tools so they can take it back home and put it into action, however makes sense to them.
Because this is one of the complaints I heard about the 2012 Reason Rally, which is that, and by the way, I also heard about Jon Stewart's rally to restore sanity, which is you bring everyone there, and everyone's so pumped up and so excited. But then the event ends, and it's like, all right, now I'm back home. Now what do I do?
Now what? Right.
Yeah, so you're going to address that this time.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the crucial things. Teaching people that there's so many different ways to be an activist is really important. And some people are activists in a much more passive way than some of our personalities, are a good fit for, and that's fine. I think, if we really want to mobilize and unify everyone by what we can agree with, then we have to start with, it's okay to be who you are. Let's help you find what fits.
So what's an example of something where, how do you not just address atheists? Who do you bring on stage to address the crowd? Or what sort of event is going on where you might say, look, you don't like identifying as atheist, but you're not really religious, but you do care about, science and reason, I guess.
Absolutely.
Those are things we all have in common. How do you get those people encouraged? What are they tasked to do after they leave the Reason Rally?
Well, I think, that's part of what we're still exploring is what's going to meet their needs and really give them what they're looking for in that experience. But I think, having workshops and things on Sunday and other events on Thursday and Friday that people can be a part of. We're going to do an event that we're currently calling an advocacy day. But it's going to basically be similar to Lobby Day that the SCA does, and we're working with the Secular Coalition to put that together. But, essentially teaching people not necessarily to go lobby. I mean, that can be a little bit high pressure for people, especially when, the mass media tends to demonize and vilify the concept of lobbying. And then you turn around and go, hey, all 40,000 of you, can you come lobby with us? And for a lot of personalities, they kind of go, oh, I don't want to do that.
That sounds
freaks me out.
shady.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's talking to your
It's
elected
not.
officials.
Exactly.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Right. Lobbying is going and having a conversation and saying, here's what I need you to do for me because I elected you, or, I am a part of who put you in office.
I pay your salary.
I pay your salary. You're our employee. So taking that, again, broadening that scope just a little bit is then to say, well, rather than teaching these people how to lobby, what we really want to do is empower them to have a conversation with their representatives. If they personally then want to say, this is what I want you to do, then they certainly can do that. And there will be people there that can teach them that if they need that. But the point of, the Friday, getting on the Hill and all that stuff is going to be much more focused this time on that broad perspective of let's just start the conversation. Let's teach you that these are not intimidating, scary people, and you can get them out of there just as easily as you got them into there. Let's have that conversation and make sure they know who they're representing.
Right. And that's a common thing where it's even like, no, this is my elected official. They represent my city.
Right.
We should be able to talk to them,
Absolutely.
not just see them on cable news when they want to make some point or something.
That's exactly it.
That is kind of what they do all day when they're not in front of the cameras anyway.
Right.
So,
and they are having these conversations with people. What we want to teach people who are coming to our event is that they can have those conversations with you too.
Right. And by the way, Christians know how to do that really well.
Very well.
Yeah,
Very
so we
well.
need to get.
We just, a lot of removing that intimidation factor, normalizing the process a little bit. That there are things that you do and things that you don't do, but some of that is just learning kind of the culture of actually going onto the Hill and having that conversation. But outside of that, it's really okay to go, talk to people and say these are the issues that matter to me, and I want you to know that. And to have your representative even just be aware of it is huge and groundbreaking for them to realize, every single state has non-believers of some shade or stripe. And we want them to be aware of that.
And I have heard from some people who said, like, whatever, I live in Texas, I have all, like, these Republicans representing me and stuff. You would think they're not in lockstep with me. But at the very least, when you talk to those elected officials, when you talk to their staff, it kind of helps to say, look, I know you think your entire base is maybe very red,
Exactly.
but here's where I'm coming from. And they might say, look, Senator whatever doesn't agree with you on this. Okay, but
that's okay.
That's okay. That's going to happen. But they need to know that you're there too, and you're going to raise a fuss if they do whatever.
Exactly. And, we have non-believers. I think the vast majority of the non-believing community tends to lean more middle to left.
Yeah.
But we absolutely have non-believers who are Republicans and all of that. And that's fine, too. They have a right to have their voices heard. And I think that's part of what we're trying to do with the Reason Rally is really create that platform where everyone can have that interaction opportunity.
So a couple questions about that. So first of all, what sort of speakers do you have who might be able to address this broad swath of people who may not all identify as atheists?
Right. So one that I'm really excited about, she's kind of a personal hero of mine, but she's known pretty well in the scientific community, is Dr. Eugenie Scott. And she has agreed to be a speaker and is very supportive of the broader reach that we're looking for and reaching out to people, outside of, the narrow mainline atheist community.
Yeah, she's not someone I would identify with as speaking to just an atheist crowd.
Not in the slightest.
She's like Neil deGrasse Tyson in that sense.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not something, as she very directly put it, she's not an atheist activist. That's not her thing. She's about science education. She's about promoting, research and exploration and all those things. And she does those things so well, and she's so passionate about it. So to give her that opportunity to address why this matters and how we can better have these conversations, I think she's an excellent representative of that. We're also really excited. We have Cara Santa Maria coming on. We have Science Babe, Yvette. For anyone who's paid attention to the food babe war going on all of that, but she's awesome.
So Science Babe basically called out the food babe for non-science, bad science that she was promoting.
Yes.
Yeah. And great writer and really good promoter.
And she's another one where, she has her opinions, but she sees the value in, really having these conversations outside of just, she's not taking on, the woo and all of that in the name of atheism. She's taking that on in the name of rational approaches to all of these topics. And that's really, what we're looking to represent as much as possible. And of course, there's obviously people who are hardline atheists, and that's fine, and they're coming back, or we're inviting them. We've got Paul Provenza, obviously, is coming back.
Who was the MC last time. And definitely a crowd favorite and just a sweetheart. He's
been very involved so far with helping all this come together. So, I mean, we've got a lot of other fun stuff in the works that hasn't quite been finalized, but, obviously we're going to have more speakers and all that as well. But
so far, like, you're not talking about, like, just the Richard Dawkins type, in the sense that these are atheists who are known within the atheist community. These are the people who spoke kind of at the Last Reason rally. But those aren't the names you're mentioning just yet anyway.
Right. Well, and, I mean, we've talked to James Randi, and he's very supportive, and if his schedule fits, then obviously he wants to be a part of things, and we'd be happy to do that. And then, without question, Richard Dawkins, if he's in the country and able to be available, we're definitely going to include him. So this isn't about restricting or dividing or anything. I'm very against the fracturing mentality of all this. But I think there's nothing wrong with saying, as a colleague, I can have a differing opinion than you.
Right.
But we can still work together for what we do agree on. And I want this event, and collectively, I think we all are ready for an event like this to really focus on what do we agree on, what are we, on the same page with, and how do we teach people to have conversations with each other that value the person, while still giving ourselves permission to have a different opinion, a little bit outside of that.
If this happens in June, we will probably know who the Democrat, Republican are at that point.
Probably.
What do you do with that information? Because this is not necessarily a political rally.
Correct.
To say, go vote for this person. That's not what's going
Correct.
on here. But what does that play into how you schedule things or what you plan to do? Because, like, we will have these candidates. We don't want these people to leave without, I don't know, doing something about that. But how do you factor politics into this?
Sure. So one of the things that we're doing, we've already reached out to the Rock the Vote campaign. I'm not sure how much of that's going to come together. We're working on it. But we would be very excited to have them there. They're very nonpartisan, and they're obviously kind of about the same thing. Let's get everybody together and just mobilize. Let's get people, voting, getting their voices heard, making sure they know how to have these conversations. That's really important. So obviously we're not going to take a partisan stance on things as a coalition. I'm not going to do that. But, our attendees our speakers from the stage may weigh in, of course. Certainly any politician out there that is interested in promoting the values and that we value and that we represent as the Reason Rally, we would welcome them to be a part of our stage.
So if Donald Trump comes by and he's like, I'm the Republican nominee, and he says, I want to address this crowd of atheists, what do you say as an organizer to that sort of thing?
Thanks, but I think we're full.
Are there politicians where, they are very unpopular with this science, reason-based community? If Ted Cruz or someone like that said, forget the presidential nomination.
Sure.
If they said, I'm a hardcore Republican, but I do want to talk about what maybe we have in common. This is not a polarizing speech per se, but if they want to address the crowd, do you say, well, that's a politician. We do want them to address us, because that's kind of the whole point. We want them to hear us.
In a sense, I think there are some people who maybe wouldn't necessarily be a good fit for our stage, and it would be worth many conversations to explore that. So, I certainly wouldn't want to.
Would you reach out to the candidates and say, hey, if you do want to speak?
Without question, there are people, again, who, are already, promoting some or all of the values that, as humanists, as non-religious people, separation of church and state, things like that. There are people that we're definitely looking at and saying, hey, you have a really level-headed voice with all of this, and we'd love to hear from you. But at the same time, there's certainly, we'd welcome the governors. We'd welcome, of course, we want people to feel like this is a place where they can speak their voice. At the same time, it's all under that umbrella of reason and rational approach. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that we're necessarily going to give platform when there already is ample platform available for them to voices that are
anti-science,
very in conflict with what we want to promote.
Sure.
I mean, that's why we're doing it. If we had as a large coalition or whatever collective movement, whatever word wants to be used, if we had the majority, if we had, the prominence in national media, if we had all those things, we wouldn't need to do this. This is happening because it's necessary. This is happening because, we're still arguing about whether or not you can have a Bible study in school. We're still arguing about, whether or not evolution should be taught. As long as we're having those conversations in other sectors, then we have to have a Reason Rally.
One of the other complaints I heard about the 2012 Reason Rally is you could bring your kids. That was totally cool. But one of the things that the media latched onto was this idea that, some people on stage swore. I mean, Tim Minchin was singing. I mean, if you listen to the point of his song, it's that, why do you care about swearing and not the scandals happening in the church?
It was a perfect illustration of his point.
Right. But that was one of the things. How do you make this a family-friendly event that's still appealing to someone who's college age and someone who's an adult with no kids? How do you change
That's
things?
Tough.
Yeah.
One of the things we're doing, we're obviously working with Camp Quest very closely. We're going to have, the Camp Quest area and Camp Quest tent, all those things. So we're definitely making, as many strides as possible to make this as family friendly and inclusive as we can. I have a big family. I'm obviously want things to be friendly for my kids, and a lot of us do. So some of that is just kind of weighing it out and figuring out, how do we give that balance between what everybody wants to hear, but then at the same time not feeling like people have to shield their kids. It's going to be as family friendly as possible at the same time. It's tough. It's because everybody has their different limits and their different standards and everything. But I'm very excited. Amanda Metzkes is working on the Camp Quest end of it. She's in charge of that subcommittee for us, and she has fantastic ideas. We've had a couple really lengthy calls where, if even half of it comes together the way we want it to, it's going to be so amazing.
So one of the things that happened in 2012, like you alluded to earlier, a lot of different national atheist organizations, humanist groups, they came together to put together the event. They kind of chose a leader amongst themselves and said, okay, we will support you, but you put it together. And this time they did something different, which is they elected kind of a nonpartisan group. Like, none of you are necessarily affiliated who are on this committee to put together the Reason Rally.
Kind of. So it actually, the logistics of the election and everything were pretty much the same. So they elected me, and then, I basically started the first thing I did was send out a whole bunch of surveys that signed everybody up for committees, and then I harassed them for about 3 weeks to get them all onto committees. I think you might have been harassed a little bit on that too.
I see.
But yeah, so it's been great. I have a really supportive board of directors, which is obviously the leaders of all these awesome organizations, and lots of them are on my committees. Dave Silverman chairs one of the committees, and Debbie Allen from the San Diego Coalition of Reason and American Humanists is the chair of our hospitality. So everybody is working together on this as much as they can.
And you have like a broad support of these various groups.
Absolutely. And each of those committees have subcommittees that are working on their own projects. It's kind of this just massive machine coming together, but it's a collaborative effort. We either people are able to just give us a lot of moral support, or in my situation, I'm able to reach out to these people just for questions or almost kind of a mentoring thing. You talk about a wealth of resources. This is a coalition of people who have really dedicated their lives to their particular cause, and a lot of times their organization. So for me to be able to just call them up and say, hey, I have a question, what do you think about this? Or what are your thoughts? How, where are you leaning on this? It's been invaluable to just have that at our disposal. And I think that's what's going to make this, just a phenomenal event. And that certainly existed last time. Dave obviously worked his tail off with it, but he has a staff that he was able to work with and that kind of thing. So this time I've kind of built that in kind of a little bit more of an organic way, but it's coming together. It's working really well.
So if I want to come to Reason Rally, besides just blocking off those dates and, booking a hotel or flights right now, what can I do? Do I register somewhere? Do I do anything right now?
You can go to the website at reasonrally.org. There's going to be information there, and obviously that's, we're still just about a year out. That's in flux. There's a lot coming together. But, that's really it. We're going to be putting a volunteer sign-up form on our website, and depending on when this airs will depend on whether or not that is up, and that's more dependent on my team than you, so don't worry about that. But yeah, we're going to have lots of ways to interact and be a part of it. We're going to be crowdsourcing a lot of skills, and it's
so if
really
people want to volunteer, we will find a way to use them somehow.
Most people who know me well know that I give you one chance to back out at volunteering, and after that, you're in. So yes, we'll take volunteers.
So if you want to help out, you'll find a use for them.
Absolutely.
So here's what this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because this is a massive undertaking.
Huge.
And yet this is one of like 18 plates that are spinning for you. So one of the other things you're running is Apostacon.
Correct.
Which is a free conference that's based out of...
It's not free.
It's not free. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. Because, no, I'll edit that out. I will never edit this stuff. But you're running Apostacon, which is a huge conference.
It's a good one, yeah.
And where is that based out of?
So this year it's going to be in Dallas. It's September 18th through the 20th. Last year we were in Omaha and we had Neil deGrasse Tyson come out, and then we had Dr. Krauss as our keynote.
So big names. Those are not easy. Like, you can't get Neil deGrasse Tyson. That's a hard person to get to your event.
He was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was totally cool.
I can't imagine he would be otherwise.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then this year, everybody kept saying, oh, how do you follow Tyson, right?
Yeah.
And there's really there's no way you can. It's just not, there's just no way to follow that. So the only thing, we were just like, well, he came out for the evening of scientific inquiry. And so this year we've got Penn and Teller, and they're coming out for an evening of magical inquiry.
And I think a lot of people would say, okay, you found a way to match what
We're
you did in a way.
We're trying to at least match. And it was one of those, there was no way we could, we're playing with, do we bring in another scientist? And then it was like, well, we don't want to try to even, it's just totally different. So we really thought Penn and Teller, they'd be a lot of fun. It's kind of the same, celebrating science, celebrating.
They don't do a lot of stuff outside of the Rio Theater in Vegas or Broadway.
They really don't. They just had, in fact, they're finishing up their Broadway show right now. And they've been great to work with to put this together, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be in a very similar format. It's one of the things with Apostacon we really like to just have, again, it's that interaction opportunity. It's people, they had I think a 2-hour Q&A going with Tyson last time because he was just having so much fun with it. And it's going to be similar. They're not there to do a magic show. If somebody wants to see a magic show with Penn and Teller, then they can go to Vegas.
So
and
they're
do
doing
that.
a Q&A basically?
Well, it's a conversation. They've done it a couple other times in slightly different formats. This one will be a little bit unique, but it's basically their 40 years of bullshit kind of conversation. Can I say that on your show?
No, this is only
bad.
for kids.
Okay, beep that out. Yeah. So it's going to be them sitting on the stage, and obviously they'll do some illusions and just some fun stuff with the audience. But they're really there to have a conversation with us. Everybody asks that. Yes, he will talk. Absolutely, he will be talking.
That's worth the price of the ticket alone.
Yeah, and it's cool because the way we do Apostacon, kind of like everything else for me, I want to make it accessible to everybody. So this year, all the meals are included on Saturday and Sunday. We've got the on Friday night. If people want to upgrade, they certainly can because that helps pay for our event. That's how
because this can't be cheap to bring these guys in and secure a venue and all that stuff.
It takes a lot of work, but it's genuinely because Apostacon has grown so much and is so popular, and that actually happened before we got Tyson. So that's how we were able to bring him in. And just knowing that we're going to have the turnout on it. So yeah, it's going to be great. People can go to apostacon.org to get their tickets. And I think the hotel block rate ends in the middle of August 22nd, I want to say. And the hotel rate is $99. It's literally across the street from the airport. I mean, this is
it's a kid-friendly conference as well.
Incredibly kid-friendly. We're working with Camp Quest Texas. They're going to be doing some childcare and all that. And all the speakers usually go down and hang out with them. And
very cool.
It's a lot of fun.
So let's talk about the other plates you have spinning here. Again, and this is why it's just really impressive because, again, these things take so much time. But then I don't even think those two things we already discussed are probably the most meaningful things you've done because let's talk about recovering from religion. Because this has a few different prongs.
It does.
What is Recovering from Religion?
So Recovering from Religion is an organization that provides practical support to people who are negatively affected by faith or religion as they're questioning, as they're doubting, as they're leaving, as they've left. Once they've left decades later, any of that, just kind of that holdover. And what we do is create and implement programs that give people those concrete resources. And what I've kind of likened it to is for any of us who ever played Zelda obsessively when we were kids, you go through the world and you finish all the stuff and you think you know everything on the map. And then you go through this other tiny little door and all of a sudden this whole new map opens up. And you don't know what to do and you don't know how to navigate that. And Recovering from Religion, we take it very seriously that people have spent their whole lives being told this is what you believe, this is what you should think, and this is where you go for the only answers that are allowed to exist. And so we kind of take that and flip it on its head entirely. And we say, you know what? there's a lot of places to look, and there's a lot of possible answers, and we don't necessarily have them all, and it's okay if you don't either. But we will look at this map with you, and we will hold a flashlight, and we'll help you figure this out, and it's not so scary because we've been through this.
So atheists just like bombed open the door and entered this new world.
They did, yeah.
That's
I figure the
awesome.
gaming reference will work well for everybody, but at
It's
least
the only game I know.
it
It's
made
either
sense
that
to
or
me.
Dr. Mario, and otherwise
God,
I'm
the
lost.
pills and the flipping.
Yes, that's probably not the analogy we want to go
Exactly,
for.
no.
But okay, so what are some of the projects, the concrete projects?
So we have our local groups, and those are small groups that meet monthly, and they're all over the world at this point. And we've got Neil Carter is the group development director putting those together, and then we have the Secular Therapist Project, which is huge and exploding, and Daryl Ray runs that. Dr. Daryl Ray, I'm so sorry.
So this is if I want to talk to a therapist,
Correct.
But I don't want a therapist to tell me to pray or go to church or something.
Right.
I just want to talk to someone from my atheist world about these are the issues I'm having, but God's out of the question in terms of...
And even believers who just want actual therapy. It's actually against the protocol for therapists to insert or include their religious mindset at all in therapy. If a client says, this is a religious value that I have, and I want things to fit inside that, then the therapist can and should respect that, and they're supposed to do that per ethical standards.
I imagine that some gay people, LGBT people, might not have that positive of an experience.
Exactly. And people even who are just kind of transitioning from one, maybe a more fundamentalist religious mindset to a more liberal one, if it's important to them to keep things in the context of using prayer and all that to work for them, of course that should be respected. But again, that's coming from the client. What happens a lot of times is, because of how religion, and especially fundamentalism, teaches that God's law is superior to any other, secular non-religious standard or non-biblical standard, they feel like there's two sets of ethics going on, and they're beholden first and foremost to the first one, which is, their job is to spread the word of God. And so because of that, a lot of times in these therapy sessions or even in their advertisements or anything, they will talk about how they have biblical-based therapy, or they will have, Christ-led approach and things like that. And, if you're in an area where that's all you've got, and all 300 therapists in your area have that on their website, where do you go where you can get actual mental health care, which we all encourage? I mean, you probably see a therapist at one time or another in their life, right? So being able to go to one who's just going to respect you for who and where you are in your life and help you with the problems that you're bringing them, as opposed to just adding baggage and perpetuating a mindset that you may or may not buy into. That's what the Secular Therapist Project is
So
about.
I can go to the Secular Therapist website, and I will have the links for all this stuff up in the show notes. But they can go there to
Correct.
find people in their areas, find people they can talk to over the phone.
Right. So there's a couple really cool things about this, and we're in the process of updating the website and all that. So, but it's still very functional. It's anonymous for both the therapist and for the client, and until they decide to share their information as to how to contact each other. So a potential client can go to the website, they can register, they can search for a therapist in their area. If there isn't a therapist in their area, and there are long-distance therapists, we do have some that can practice in specific states long distance. If they're able to do that, they'll get that information. And then they can then communicate with the therapist completely anonymously to decide if they're a good fit for each other, because that's important too. It
Right.
doesn't, just because they might share, the concepts of not including religion doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the best therapist for you. So they work out and make sure they're going to be a good fit, and then they decide to share contact information. So it's all completely anonymous, and it's free. We are completely donor supported, just to get that out there.
To use the service.
To use the service, absolutely. And it's one of those things that all of our therapists go through a very specific vetting process to make sure that they're a good fit for our program. And they understand that, our guidelines and our rules and our priorities as to why those exist the way they do. And then from there, they're able to go on and make their appointments and that sort of thing. So we've had tremendous success with that. In fact, I've had probably at least once or twice a week, I'll get emails from people saying, I didn't know what to do, and I stumbled on this, and I found a therapist, and wow, it's everything that I needed. And that's just incredibly encouraging. So that's obviously one of our other programs. We have the Hotline Project, which is, kind of been getting some attention lately.
Yeah, it's gotten some media
a little
buzz.
bit. Yeah, it's a little bit out there. But it's an 800 number where people can call and talk to trained volunteers, and I wrote a training program for them, and we had it vetted by. There wasn't one out there. I mean, I don't like reinventing the wheel, so I was like, "There's got to be something out there," and there wasn't. So we wrote one, and then we had it.
And this is for people to call if they're having religious doubts.
Yeah,
and they want to talk to someone.
Yeah, so anyone negatively affected by religion or questions about or spouse of or knows someone, we get calls from people who are religious saying, "Hey, I just found out my brother is an atheist." Or actually, the humanist is more common, and I want to know what the hell a humanist is, And so we'll explain that, And it's one of those things where people call us, and we give them a lot of resources. We send them in a lot of directions, but we don't say, here's the answer to your problem. We say, hey, we're going to help you figure this out and help you get the tools to find your own answers.
So if someone called the hotline and said, I'm having doubts about my faith. What should I do? You're not encouraging them to say, well, if you read The God Delusion, you'll become an atheist.
This. Right.
That's not what's going on.
No, Recovering from Religion is not an evangelical atheist organization. There's no question that a lot of people who have their doubts and have their questions, when they come through our programs, and we like to say they come through us, not to us, because we're not a stopping point, we're a transition. But as they come through all of this, they tend to let go of the more fundamentalist beliefs that they have and embrace something from a deism to an agnosticism to atheism, somewhere in there. But we don't proselytize. We don't push our agenda. In fact, our training program, we specifically teach our volunteers how to circumvent their own bias and keep it out of the conversation. One of the biggest complaints that we have about the Hotline Project, and I actually take this as a compliment, people will call in and they have questions, especially when they're, loosely religious but still kind of thinking of letting go of things. And they go through our feedback form, or they'll call us again and leave a message, and they'll say, well, I appreciate all the time and attention, but nobody gave me an actual answer. They just gave me a bunch of links, and I've got all these books to read and all this. And
I have to do my own work.
And that, to me, I go, yep, we did it. That's exactly. Because we don't want them to feel like, it is overwhelming to embrace all of this and absorb all of this. We want them to know they're not alone, but we don't want them to feel like, that it's just one more church giving them one more thing. That's not what it's about.
I'm having a kid in a few months.
I know, I'm so excited for you.
I'm already freaking out. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to have to stop everything else I'm doing in my life because of this one thing. But I mean, she's
going to hear this someday.
No one's going to hear this any day.
That's true. Thank you. That's why it was important to me that I do this interview, Emmett.
I know how to pull them in. But you have, how many kids do you have?
Well, I have 4 at home.
Yeah. And, how do you deal with... I mean, if you had 2, this would be impressive to pull all this stuff together. But, yeah, you have 4 kids at home. How do you manage your time?
I'm very busy a lot.
Yeah.
So there's that. No, it's one of those... People ask me that a lot. And a huge part of it, honestly, I have awesome teams of people that I work with. And I'm a big fan of just, open communication, and we get things moving, and we figure out who's doing what. And I don't do all of this myself. This is all happening because we are all this, fantastic machine of volunteers. And these are all people working with me who are very passionate about the same values and the same priorities of getting this message out. Recovering from religion, as much as the other stuff, I love the Reason Rally Coalition and everything that it's about. I love Apostacon and everything it's become. But recovering from religion, as a former fundamentalist who went through all of that, that's where my heart is, for lack of a better term. And for everyone that's on that team with me, that's how they feel about it as well. And so, a lot of it, everybody says, how do you do it? How do you do it? I find people that are as passionate as I am and willing to put in the work and effort to do all of it. So that's really it. It's not just me.
That's very, very, that's awesome. And it also means we can't clone you like that. So that
might be helpful if we could, if anyone out there.
If we have the technology.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against it necessarily.
So we will have links to all the things we talked about here, but because the Reason Rally, I think, is on a lot of people's minds, if they want more information on that, they can go...
reasonrally.org.
reasonrally.org, and there will be more information as time progresses, as things come together.
Yep. The one thing I will say, as soon as the hotel links are up on the website, which again should be by the time everybody hears this, I would encourage everybody to grab your hotel rooms as soon as possible. We have fantastic hotel rates. It's obviously this is prime tourist season, and the hotels are virtually on the mall, and they're $139 a night.
That's not bad for DC in that time.
It's a fantastic rate.
Yeah.
So definitely, get your hotel rooms right away. There's no question. So.
Awesome. Thank you, and good luck with the Reason Rally, and good luck with all the other projects.
I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for listening to the podcast for FriendlyAtheist.com. This episode was taped at Cinnamon Sound Studios in Aurora, Illinois, and the music was written and performed by Brad Chagdis. If you like what you're hearing, please consider making a contribution at patreon.com/Hemant, that's He-Man T. We appreciate your support. I'm Hemant Mehta.
And I'm Jessica Blumke. We hope you'll join us next time.